It's Valentine's Day, but this year, the only person busier than the flower shop is going to be the funeral director. That's because the world's angriest Minecraft player has a score to settle with the people here in town, and he's about to go on the most brutal rampage of revenge that anyone has ever seen. He's not just here to break hearts, he's here to take them. So I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the evil miner in My Bloody Valentine. It's been 1 year since a Valentine's Day mine collapse ended with 5 workers dead, but it wasn't the explosion that killed them. Harry Warden, the only survivor, killed the others to save oxygen for himself, and he's been stuck in a coma ever since. But tonight, that's finally going to change. Just then, the man opens his eyes for the first time since the accident and immediately begins to attack the first person that he sees. By the time that the police get there, the place is already an absolute bloodbath, with people literally torn apart all over the building. As for the nurse, he cut out her heart and left it in a box of chocolates before disappearing to the scene of his next crime, making 9 victims down with 18 more to go. Meanwhile, at the mine, a group of teenagers are throwing a giant party. Tom here is the owner's son, but he's also the guy who caused the explosion 1 year before. So before going inside, he hesitates and tells his girlfriend Sarah to go ahead without him, saying that he'll catch up with her soon. Sarah here goes running after her friends, but it isn't long before she winds up lost, and that's when this guy in a mask jumps out to scare her. Luckily, it's just a prank, but then all of a sudden, a pickaxe comes flying out from around the corner and pierces straight through his eye. It's Warden, dressed in a gas mask and mining gear, and this time it's definitely not just a prank, bro, which means that it's time for Sarah to start running for her life. That makes 10 victims down, with 17 more to go. Okay, somebody needs to tell this guy it's Valentine's Day, not Halloween. Poor fella must have got his holidays mixed up while he was in that coma. Anyway, this party invite clearly didn't go out to the smartest kids in town, otherwise she would never be in this situation. When it comes to manual labor, mining is one of the most dangerous jobs that you can possibly have, and you'd have to be a total idiot to sneak in there after it was closed, especially when it's the same tunnel that just collapsed less than a year ago. Even without a masked killer on the loose, one wrong move could bring the whole thing down on their heads, and then this goes from a drinking party to a Donner party real quick. For Tom, coming back here isn't just dangerous physically, it's also terrible for his mental health as well. I mean, think about it. Everyone in town still blames him for what happened, and now he's going back to the scene of the crime like it's all good. This mine is the absolute last place that he needs to be, and now I bet they're regretting not just going to the movies or something instead. Now, with all that being said, Sarah's worst mistake of all was splitting up from the group. Even under normal circumstances, getting lost somewhere in these pitch black tunnels would be a death sentence. But she would have been toast if it weren't for Jason here showing up at just the right moment. And that's why you always want to travel with at least one meat shield whenever possible. Now, when it comes to the killer, the first step to beating him is assessing the threats. If he only uses hand-to-hand weapons like we see here, then he'll have to catch you before he can kill you. So the first thing you have to figure out is his top speed. Almost all slashers fall somewhere between Ghostface normal human speed and Michael Myers' slow walk of death. It looks like our guy here is closer to Michael than Billy and Stu, so we'll just adjust our strategy accordingly. In this case, the quote, slow is smooth and smooth is fast definitely applies. You can outrun him just by keeping up a light jog, but if you make a mistake and trip, then it's game over. So Sarah needs to make sure that she stays on her feet and start making her way towards the nearest voices that she can hear. Remember, Sarah's lost, so blindly running around the tunnels is not an option, but if she can find another group of people, then not only will she have a great supply of meat shields, but she can follow the crowd as they run out to safety while the killer is distracted. Also, it's important to remember that he's just a normal guy, so grabbing the nearest object and using it to fight back is a perfectly viable option. For now, though, it's better for Sarah Sarah to try and get away while she has the chance, and hopefully avoid a confrontation altogether. Ah, love is in the air. Oh, actually that's not love, that's the smell of my delicious Factor meal that just got done cooking. Factor delivers fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. Their team of gourmet chefs create each meal using only the freshest ingredients to help you feel your best all day long. One of the biggest challenges of this time of year is staying on top of healthy eating and avoiding holiday-themed killers, am I right? Factor seriously takes the stress out of meal planning, with over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, and veggie. There's something for everyone. Plus, they offer tons of delicious snack options to keep you fueled throughout the day, perfect for those busy spring days. I also love that Factor is so flexible. You can change your order up every week with plans from 4 to 18 meals per week, or pause or reschedule your deliveries anytime. This flexibility is quite amazing, especially as my schedule gets busier with all these new horror movies dropping. Honestly, Factor has been a game changer for me. I used to dread meal prep after a long day in the studio, but now I can enjoy delicious and healthy meals without the hassle. It's definitely given me more time to enjoy my very cool and super normal hobbies that I do besides running this channel. But seriously, sometimes I can't hit the store, and Factor meals getting delivered right to the crib makes all the difference. Right now, my favorite meal to get is the roasted garlic butter salmon. It comes with celery root, cauliflower mash, and Parmesan broccoli, and y'all, let me tell you, it's to die for. So, ready to jump on the Factor train? Head to factor75.com or use the link below and use code 50HOWTOBEAT to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. That's code 50HOWTOBEAT at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Check it out. The killer closes in, the girl rushes back through the tunnels, stumbling over one dead body after another until she's too terrified to go on. Just then, her friends Axel and Irene pull her around a corner, hiding her in the darkness just as Warden arrives. He passes them by at first until this other dorky guy shows up and blows their cover, but he hits his head on a board as he tries to escape and ends up getting pickaxed directly through the mouth. Seizing the opportunity, the others use the chance to run for their lives, only for Axel here to trip over his own feet a few steps later. With nowhere to run, he's about to join the death count when Sarah runs in and hits the killer with a shovel, saving him just in time. That's when a random NPC comes running straight towards them at the worst possible moment. And before she even knows what hit her, he uses that same shovel to chop her head completely in half from the jaw up. Another meat shield down means another chance to escape, and up ahead they wind up running into Tom, who still has no clue what's going on until he sees the pickaxe-wielding psychopath headed their way. Running to the truck, they make it just as the killer catches up with Tom, knocking him down and throwing one of his favorite weapons straight through their windshield. Desperate to get away, Axel slams on the gas, leaving Tom here for dead, and his only choice is to run back into the mine. It doesn't take long before the killer catches up with him, but Tom sees him coming and manages to dodge all of his swings. He can't hold out forever though, and eventually ends up cornered with nowhere left to run, but just then, the police finally show up and fire a shot straight into his back. Injured but refusing to give up, Warden gets back on his feet and stumbles away, losing them as he disappears deeper into the tunnels. That makes 15 victims down with 12 more to go. 10 years later, the official story is that Warden died somewhere in that mine, and Axel here made it all the way up to the position to county sheriff. He also married Sarah after Tom left town, but that hasn't stopped him from having a sneaky affair with her coworker Megan. They've been meeting up to do the deed in this abandoned cabin somewhere in the woods, but today she hits him with the worst Valentine's gift of all time, telling him that she's pregnant. That night, Tom comes back for the first time since the attacks, wanting to sell the mine now that his father passed away. Needing a place to crash for the night, he ends up at the Thunderbird Motel, where Irene here happens to be in the next room over, loudly getting it on with this random trucker. As he's getting dressed, she notices that he secretly filmed the whole thing and gets so pissed that she storms after him butt-ass naked like the TX at the start of Terminator 3. He doesn't take her threats very seriously, but as he goes to get in the truck, he ends up getting a pickaxe straight through the dome from none other than Zombie Warden himself, back for another spin through his old killing grounds. Horrified, Irene takes off back towards the motel office, with the murderous miner just a few steps behind. She makes it to the office with no sign of the owner and quickly takes cover under the woman's bed. A moment later, the killer comes walking in right behind her and starts searching the room until he's only a few inches away. Just when he's about to find her, the owner happens to come back with no idea what's about to happen, until all of a sudden, Warden bursts out of the closet and spikes her upwards through the head so hard that it lifts her entire body straight through the ceiling, and Irene lets out an involuntary gasp, giving away where she's hiding. Throwing off the mattress, he has to go back for his weapon first, leaving Irene time to use the bed frame as a shield. It almost works for a second, but it doesn't take him long to stop going for the head, and buries the spike straight into her stomach instead, sending blood flying all over the room. That makes 18 victims down, with 9 more to go. Okay, I guess you could say that these two got caught with their pants down, literally. It looks like the miner came back to finish what he started 10 years ago, only this time Irene wasn't as lucky. But there was absolutely no reason why she had to die here if she'd just make a few better choices instead. First of all, what's the point of even keeping that thing on you if you don't at least have some ammunition? She could have ended this whole disaster right now and been the hero who saved everyone in town from what's about to happen. But she literally threw away the best weapon that you could possibly ask for and left herself totally unarmed. A decision that she started to regret approximately 5 seconds later. Now, with that being said, her survival skills weren't all bad. You have to be pretty damn athletic or on a lot of illegal substances to sprint across a parking lot butt-ass naked in a pair of heels. And running for the motel office was actually a great choice. It has multiple entrances and exits, a phone and possibly another weapon, and maybe even the front desk worker who you can use as a meat shield. Who knows? But right after this is where it all went horribly wrong. Irene made it to the office with plenty of time to spare, so the first thing that I would have done was secure the door with the handle lock and the little chain up top just for some added security. Then we can use that phone to call the police. Luckily, it's cordless, so next we can take the phone with us as we run into the back room, securely locking that door as well to give us another layer of protection. From there, I'd start pushing heavy furniture in front of the doorway, like the television set or the sofa. The key here is to try and build a line of furniture all the way from the door to the opposite wall, making it as difficult as possible for him to force his way inside. By now, the police should be on their way, and she'd only have to hold out a few more minutes before backup arrived. This is the point where you want to grab a weapon, like a knife or a frying pan from the kitchen. But since we still don't know what this guy's capable of, or if he's even human anymore, the best thing that we can do is to try to avoid a fight at all costs. The room had 2 windows that she could easily have fit through, and those would have been my escape plan if Warden managed to get inside before the police. Even with all of the mistakes that she made, she had one last opportunity at the very end there to push the bed frame forward, using it to knock Warden off balance while she made a run for the door. But it looks like that's it for our girl Irene here, and the killer is just getting started. In the morning, the sheriffs arrive to find the place turned into a total massacre, and just like back at the hospital 10 years ago, the killer tore out Irene's heart. They checked the motel guest book, but besides Irene, only one other person rented a room using their real name, leading them back to their old friend Tom. While they're busy at the scene of the crime, Tom runs into Sarah while she's working at the grocery store. She's surprised to see him after all these years, and he's surprised to find out that she married Axel. But it's obvious that neither one of them is really over their old relationship. Finding the trucker's camera, they realize that the killer was dressed exactly like Harry military warden, but the sheriff insists that the man is dead. That's when one of the deputies finds a box of Valentine's Day chocolates with his name on it, and opening it up, they're disgusted to find the woman's heart hidden inside. While the sheriff is up late reviewing the evidence, he notices Tom appear in the window at one point earlier in the night. Worried that he could be their suspect, he warns Sarah to stay far away from the guy, telling her to say something if he tries to contact her again. First thing in the morning, he finds Sarah just as she's opening the store and convinces her to give him 15 minutes to talk. She was already mad at him for abandoning the town, but now that he's back, she's even more angry that he wants to sell the mine, saying how they all rely on it for work. Apologizing, Tom explains he still feels guilty for causing the accident, and that's why he's been trying to run away from it ever since. But Sarah here tells him that the only way to move on is by going back to the source of his problems and facing up to his mistakes. Taking her advice, he goes to the mines and demands to speak with the manager, Ben, who's working somewhere down in the mines. The other workers make it clear that he isn't welcome there, but since he technically owns the place, their only choice is to do what he says. He's escorted down by this guy Red here, and while they're waiting for the man to show up, he wanders away on his own back to the place where it all went wrong. All of a sudden, he spins around only to find himself face to face with the miner, who injures him with his pickaxe before locking him inside the cell. Trapped, there's nothing he can do as the killer stands right on the other side of the gate, mimicking his every move only to turn around and set his sights on the other worker. The man turns just in time to get spiked through the arm, but despite his injury, he manages to steal the weapon away and use it to start fighting back. Holding his own, he's about to come out on top when the miner catches it with his foot and kicks it back up directly through his forehead, yanking it out as he collapses to the ground and making sure that Tom's watching as he starts hacking up the body. That makes 19 down with 8 more to go. Okay, something strange is going on here, and it's not just Axel's late-night investigations. It was obvious that there was about to be some trouble as soon as Tom here walked away on his own. He better be grateful that he has plot armor, because it's the only thing stronger than a meat shield when you go around making dumb decisions like that. The killer here clearly wanted to send a message by trapping him in the cage and making him watch another attack. But one quick look around shows that Tom still had plenty of options at his disposal. Like, oh, I don't know, maybe he could have just tried yelling? Red would have easily heard him, and so would have everyone else in the mine, taking away this guy's chance to get a sneak attack and escape. Any rational person would have been screaming for help as soon as this guy showed up. Tom here apparently got so afraid that he forgot how to speak. He wasn't completely trapped either, because inside the cage there was a broken part from another pickaxe that he could have used to bend the handle back open and allowed himself to escape or warn his friends. Now, after 10 years of everything being quiet, Tom here happened to show up in town at the same time as Warden's ghost returned for another killing spree. And you'd have to be stupid to think that it's just a coincidence. To stop the attacks, they need to find out who's really under the mask, and it all comes back to something that Sarah mentioned earlier. Tom wants to sell the mine, but practically everyone in town relies on the money that that place brings in. This person obviously doesn't want the deal to go through, but then why not just kill Tom when he had the chance? Well, if Tom has a legally binding will that explicitly states he wants to sell the mine, then they'll have to go through with the sale whether he's dead or not. But if they can frame Tom for the murders and have him found criminally insane, then a court-appointed conservator like Ben here could take over control of the mines and stop the sale. If I were the sheriff looking for a motive, then this is exactly where I would start, and it helps that only the miners themselves have access to the gear that the killer is wearing. So with a solid motive and fairly limited pool of suspects, it shouldn't be that hard to figure out our killer's true identity and stop him before he strikes again. The problem is, there's even more to the story that we're about to find out. When the other miners finally get there, Warden himself is already long gone, leaving only Tom to take the blame once again. Oh, they're absolutely furious, but from the looks of things, there's no way that he could have been the one who did it, even though none of them know what else to believe. At the hospital, Tom tries to explain his side of the story, and as crazy as it sounds, he swears that it was Warden who attacked them. That's when the sheriff reveals that he's been listening the whole time, and there's just one problem with Tom's explanation. The truth is that the Warden was never buried in the mines. He was killed by their fathers and been here as an act of revenge, and he's about to prove it once and for all. Taking them out to the woods, he makes Ben lead them to where they hid the body, planning to use it as proof that the killer isn't supernatural. Just past the hidden escape hatch, they find the shallow grave, where they buried Warden after the massacre 10 years ago. But to their surprise, there's absolutely no trace of the body left. The old folks say that it must have been dug up by animals, but they can't prove that he was actually dead when they buried him. And now the sheriff is not so sure, meaning that Tom's story could be true after all. Going back to the station, Axel still has questions for Tom about why he came back after being gone for so long. He sticks to his story about planning to sell the mine, but says that he's changed his mind, and a huge fight breaks out when they start beefing over Sarah. When the other officer runs in, Axel shouts that he wants the man arrested, but his partner says that they can't lock him up. According to the mine foreman's sworn statement, Tom was locked in the cage when they got to him, meaning that there had to be someone else in the tunnel. Outside, Ben admits that he's starting to believe his friend's story and warns him that he should just get out of town. Instead, Tom says that he's going to look for the killer himself, but mentions that the old man here might want to be careful as well, because they never know who Warden's next target could be. On a hunch, he goes back to the mine and prepares to check inside, but before he can even get one step into the tunnel, he hesitates and shuts the door. Just then, the door slowly groans open right behind him, but when he looks again, there's still nothing inside but absolute darkness. That's when he notices a light watching him from the distance, before suddenly disappearing into the woods at the top of the hill, and Tom rushes after it, prepared to confront the Warden if he gets the chance. Spotting him through the trees, the chase leads him straight back to the abandoned cabin, where Axel and his side chick have been hooking up. Nervous, he pushes the door open and carefully makes his way inside, but there's no sign of anyone there besides some rats eating a box of Valentine's Day cookies. Meanwhile, back in town, Ben here is spending the night at home when he hears his dogs start barking. And it looks like he took his friend's advice pretty seriously, because he's already got his shotgun ready to go. At the first sound of trouble, he gets up and stumbles to the front door with the weapon in his hands, aiming at the darkness around his porch until he's sure he's scared it off. The man chuckles to himself as he goes back inside, laughing at how silly he was for believing there was any danger, until all of a sudden, Warden comes bursting in from the next room and hits him straight in the back. Fighting for his life, he rolls out of the way and starts crawling for his gun, but the miner easily overpowers him and drags him back towards the spike, holding him over it before lunging back and curb stopping him straight down onto the point. That makes 20 victims down with 7 more to go. Okay, you know you made a bad choice when your last 2 words on this earth are, "Oh shit." I guess selling the mines wasn't such a bad idea after all, but now it looks like your retirement came with a different kind of severance package. Sorry, Ben, but you just f***ed up. You see, this right here is a perfect example of why you always have to confirm the kill. You and the old sheriff thought that you took Warden out back 10 years ago, but when they asked if you were sure if he was dead, you had to admit that you didn't know. Well, if there's one thing that slasher movies have taught us, it's that if you're gonna take down the killer and bury his body somewhere in the woods, then you better make sure that he's not gonna rise from the grave and come back to haunt you a decade later. At least the first couple of victims had no idea it was coming, but your ass was well aware that an incredibly dangerous, potentially supernatural killer was currently rampaging around town and slaughtering anyone with connections to the mine. If you knew that you weren't involved, then it was obvious that you might be the next target. The truth is that you should have taken the advice that you gave Tom and got the hell out of town while you still had the chance, but instead you decided to get blackout drunk to the point where you could barely stand up from your chair. Great! Now, to be fair, you did pick the ultimate weapon to defend yourself, but it's practically useless if you're unloading it every 2 seconds. At that point, it's basically just a club, and that still can't help when you're so oblivious to your surroundings that you don't even notice the guy standing right behind you. Oh, and by the way, I don't know how he got inside unless you left the door unlocked, but to be honest, that wouldn't even surprise me. Staying alive here should have been easy. All that you had to do was barricade yourself in that room and call for some help. And then just blast that creep if he tried to get inside, or let the police take care of him once they get there. But you seemed to think that pretending it wasn't happening was enough to keep you safe, and it looks like that turned out to be the wrong choice, because Ben, you kinda just up a little bit, yeah. In the morning, the sheriff is still at a loss as the attacks keep ramping up with no suspect, and now nobody's seen Tom in over a day. He's furious at his wife, convinced that she's still covering up for her old boyfriend. But that's when he gets notified that they've just found Ben's body. Whoever killed the man left him in Warden's unmarked grave, and for the sheriff, it's a sign that the killer is toying with them. The only other people who knew about the grave were Tom and the old sheriff Burke, so he tells his deputies to keep an eye out for them until the killer strikes again. Later that night, Sarah and Megan start hearing strange noises while they're closing the store, even though the place is locked up and there shouldn't be any more customers. Worried, the two of them cautiously make their way up to the registers, not realizing that the killer is already watching their every move. That's when they hear another loud crash, but there's still no sign of any danger, until just then, the power suddenly goes out. All of a sudden, they come around the corner only to find the killer standing in their way, forcing the girls to run for their lives as he starts chasing after them. He catches Sarah first and slams her up against a fridge, but she quickly grabs a big chunk of frozen meat and uses it to club him over the head, giving her another chance to escape. This time, she only makes it to the end of the aisle before she trips and falls, leaving her open for the killing blow. But Megan comes to the rescue just in time and starts beating the guy up with a mop. While he's distracted, they run through the storage room and into the back office, but now there's nowhere left for them to go. It's only a matter of time before he gets through the door, so they quickly shove the filing cabinet and push the desk up against it, hoping that this will at least slow him down. Megan notices a window that they can fit through, but it's covered with a metal gate and locked from the other side. Searching the desk, she finds the keys just as Sarah gets through to the police. But the killer's making faster progress, and he's about to reach through the door. Finally, the girl manages to unlock the window, but they're too slow, and Warden quickly notices what they're doing. Realizing that he's gone, Megan starts panicking and trying to climb back inside. But by then, it's already too late, and he drags her away, screaming into the darkness. Sarah only stands there horrified until he suddenly reappears in the window, slashing at her through the opening with his pickaxe, but she's able to get away and hit the police panic button, and when she looks back, he's already gone. Terrified, she rushes for the front door just as her husband Axel arrives at the scene, telling him that the killer is still behind the store. Not wanting to lose him, he quietly goes around to check the alley, but by the time that they get there, all that's left is Megan's body propped up against the wall, with her heart cut out and stuck inside a box of chocolates just like before. That makes 21 victims down, with 6 more to go. After taking care of her injured arm, they're confused why the killer chose to attack Megan when his other victims were all connected to the mine. Heartbroken, Sarah points out that maybe he did it as a message to the sheriff, revealing that she's been suspicious of their affair all along. Okay, I've heard of getting your heart broken on Valentine's Day, but this guy is just taking it a bit too far. At least Sarah doesn't have to worry about the competition anymore. So after finding Ben's body, Axel mentioned placing a squad car outside of his house. He did this because the killer is going after people with connections to the mine, which meant that his family could be the next target, and it turned out that he was right. He just didn't know the correct location. Knowing that Sarah here could be up next, he should have had an officer watching the grocery store as well. Not only would this have kept her safe, but it also would have given them the chance to actually catch the killer when he showed up. Kind of like using her as live bait. Now, as terrifying as it might be, a supermarket isn't actually the worst place to get attacked by an insane killer, because it gives you a lot of creative opportunities for how you're going to escape or fight back. When he first showed up, they missed their chance at a clear shot straight for the front door. Megan mentioned that she locked it, but these types of doors almost always have a manual override that lets you push it open from the inside in case of an emergency. Otherwise, she could have used her key to unlock it while Sarah held him back using those shopping carts and by pelting him with cans of soda. It was at this point that she made a crucial mistake by splitting up from Megan for no apparent reason, and that would have been the end if she didn't get lucky and find some tactical meat. Remember everyone, the most important meat that you can have is a meat shield, so never split up unless you're sure that the killer is going after the other guy. No matter what you're up against, running is usually the best strategy, yeah, but as we can see from what happened here, that's not always true. Sooner or later, there's going to come a time when they have to fight back. The problem is, we don't know who or even what is under that mask. He could be a regular guy, or he could be some kind of undead zombie like Jason, and that's going to change what weapons they need in order to get the job done. We can start with your good old-fashioned blunt object and work our way up from there, but I'd try to find something a little bit more sturdy than a mop, like the fire extinguisher, or an axe or shovel if the store has a garden section. I mean, it should become clear pretty quickly if your attacks are working, and if not, then we have to step up to more drastic measures. And when all else fails, fire almost always does the trick, so as we're fighting, I'd be looking for flammable liquids and a lighter that we could use to fry this freak and take him out for good. At the family's home, they're having a housekeeper look after their son. There's even an officer watching the house, but it's still not enough to protect the nanny when she leaves the back door unlocked while bringing out the trash, and gets a surprise pickaxe straight to the face, making 22 down with 5 more to go. Back outside, former Sheriff Burke here comes sneaking up on the officer to warn her that they're all in danger. They carefully approach the house with the officer leading the way inside while Burke stays back and watches the front door. There's no sign of the killer until Burke hears something around the other side of the house, looking down only to see a mining helmet with the light shining up towards the porch. It's just a decoy, and while he's trying to figure out how it got there, she finds the nanny's body stuffed inside of the smoking dryer. Just as Burke turns around, when all of a sudden the killer ambushes him from behind. That makes 23 down with 4 more to go. Sarah's just being released from the hospital when she gets a call from Tom, and he has some news that changes everything. He says that the killer isn't Warden after all, and if she gives him a chance, then he'll prove who's really behind the attacks. Not long after, Axel comes to the hospital looking for his wife, only to find out that she left with Tom a few minutes before he arrived. And just then, his partner calls over the radio, saying how there's something in Tom's file that he needs to see. Speeding towards the cabin, Tom starts telling Sarah that the killer is actually her husband, but she doesn't believe that that could be possible. Just then, she gets a call from Axel, telling her that Tom was actually just released from a mental hospital, saying that he's the one who's been going after people in town. Noticing that he's on edge, Sarah tries to cover it up by pretending that the call was from her mother, but Tom catches on that she's lying and starts refusing to let her go. Panicking, she grabs the wheel and pulls them off to the right side of the road, sending them head-on into a knocked-down tree that crashes through the windshield, barely missing both of their heads. Sarah makes it out of the truck first, picking herself up and limping to a trail that leads deeper into the woods. Her ex-boyfriend tries chasing after her, but he's too injured from the crash to catch up, giving her a chance to put some distance between them. Once she's far enough away, she calls Axel to let him know that he was right, and tells her to head for the abandoned cabin, promising to meet her there as soon as he can. She makes it there safely and quickly shoves a piece of furniture in the front of the door, but that's when she finds a box of Valentine's chocolates, just like the ones that the killer always uses. And inside, there's a photograph of her and Tom that she knows her husband was extremely jealous of. Thinking twice, she runs around the cabin searching for more clues, and sure enough, she finds an entire closet full of those chocolate boxes in the kitchen. Okay, that just changed this entire situation. Sarah has nowhere left to run, and the only two people who she can rely on for help might be the ones who are trying to kill her, maybe? I don't know. Her ex's reaction to that phone call was kinda sus, and keeping someone hostage in your car doesn't exactly make you seem like the most trustworthy person. But then, when it comes to Axel, he's also been acting suspicious as hell this entire time. And now what she found in the cabin here makes it look like maybe he's the killer after all, leaving her in a position where she has no idea who she can trust. This means that her only safe option is not to trust either of them, and to treat both of them as threats until someone can prove otherwise. Now, the cabin gives her a decent place to hold out, but there is a problem. Both Axel and Tom know exactly where she is, and they're both headed there right now, so no matter which one of them turns out to be the real killer, he's going to be there in a matter of minutes. Sarah still has her phone, so if it were me, the first thing that I would do is call the police and not Axel, and tell them what the hell was going on. This way, we know that backup is coming for sure, and all that we have to do is survive until they get there. Then it's time to secure the cabin, and block as many entrances on the first floor as you can by pushing heavy furniture in front of them. Then I would also set up a trap at the main entrance by taking a smaller, heavy object and wedging it between my barricade at the top of the doorframe. That way, it would crash down on his head when the guy tries to force his way inside. We still need a way out though, so I'd suggest leaving a window open on the second floor that she can quickly escape through, and set up obstacles along the route to help slow him down. After that, she needs to search the place for a weapon. The good news is that she has plenty of choices, and could go with something like a knife or a frying pan from the kitchen, a bunch of glass bottles, a broken piece of furniture, or even just a board with some nails in it. I mean, anything that lets her fight back and gives her some reach to match his pickaxe. I mean, we need to make the best use of everything that we have here, so I'd also take that mattress and set it up at the bottom of the stairs. Once the guy shows up, the key is to hold him on the first floor for as long as possible. But if he's too strong, then she can fall back to the stairs and use the mattress as a shield to block his attacks while striking him from around the sides. Now, with all of that being said, leaving the cabin and hiding out in the woods instead might actually be the better idea. Then she can wait for Axel and Tom to show up and just let them deal with each other. After all, there's no reason for her to risk her own safety when they'll eventually just take each other out either way. So technically, all she has to do is hide in a tree, sit back, and enjoy the show. Suddenly, the killer appears at the back door and waits for her to turn around before taking a powerful swing at the woman's head. Dodging it, she grabs a frying pan and stuns him with a quick counterattack, but there isn't enough time for her to clear the other door, leaving her with no choice but to jump out a window instead. She ends up losing her phone in the fall, but gets away long enough to escape deeper into the forest, with the killer slowly marching after her. Before long, she finds herself back at the mine and rushes to take cover inside one of the buildings, trying the doors until she gets into the locker room. The only problem is, the place is like a funhouse full of old mining gear, and everywhere that she turns, gas masks keep appearing out of the shadows to scare her. The girl runs through the building absolutely terrified until the real miner actually jumps out and chases her deeper into the facility, following the winding halls until she ends up back outside the tunnel where it all went down. With no other choice, she grabs a flashlight and starts running down into the mine shaft, hoping to lose him somewhere inside. Hearing someone coming, she hides around the corner waiting for them to get close before jumping out and smashing them in the head with her flashlight, and quickly grabs his revolver as he's getting back on his feet. This time it's Axel, but she still doesn't trust him, and Tom comes walking down the tunnel, and now they're both trying to act like the other one is lying. Not trusting either of them, Sarah tells them both to stay back as she tries to make up her mind, but that's when Axel starts telling her to just shoot them both. Worried, Tom makes one last attempt to prove that he is not the killer, but in the process, accidentally reveals details about the message he left at Megan's crime scene that he couldn't have possibly have known about unless he was there. Now she knows the truth, proving that Tom really is the killer after all, when all of a sudden he starts shouting that the warden is standing right behind them. Of course, it turns out that it's only in his head, and after digging up Warden's grave, he went on a killing spree driven by the flashbacks that he's had ever since the first attack. Grabbing a pickaxe, Axel quickly takes a swing at the man's head, but he dodges it and shoves him backward into a pile of old equipment. The two of them start beating the absolute crap out of each other using anything that they can get their hands on, until finally the sheriff sweeps his legs out with a shovel and starts beating him down. But just when he's about to finish him off, Tom quickly gets back to his feet and buries the pickaxe straight into his guts. Turning around, he disappears into the tunnels as Sarah misses every shot, but when she goes to help her injured husband, he turns back around and starts coming after them to finish the job. They aren't moving fast enough to get away, so taking cover behind a wall, he hands Sarah the weapon with only one shot left, telling her to make it count. Stepping out, Tom freezes when he sees her, only to lunge at her a moment later with the pickaxe, but she fires the shot straight through the side of his chest and ends up hitting the container full of flammable gas that's right behind them. The hit causes an explosion that sends Tom flying through the air, while Sarah and her husband manage to escape the blast. A while later, a rescue worker finds him buried in the rubble, and somehow he's still alive. But while he's trying to get the man help, Tom grabs his pickaxe and spikes him straight through the face, making 24 victims down with 3 survivors. Using the stolen uniform, Tom sneaks away without anyone knowing that he made it out alive. While back on the surface, the sheriff tells everyone that he died in the explosion, having no idea that he's dead wrong yet again. My Bloody Valentine, the remake of the classic, seminal, early proto-slasher. Yeah, I mean, you know, it was the OG. The OG is out there, but this one is pretty cool. This movie was released in 3D, a nice feature. Happy Valentine's Day to all my meat shields out there. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the guy. We'll see you in the next video, and have a damn good Valentine's Day.